At first light, Rome smells like smoke and wet stone. The streets are narrow, the walls high, and the air is full of dust from the day before. A baker opens his shop, a mule shakes its harness, a boy runs with a basket, and in a grand house near the Forum, behind a bronze door marked with a proud crest, slaves begin to move before the city even wakes. They do not own their names. Most were given new ones when they were taken from home. Some are from Greece, some from Syria, some from the north, where the winters are long. Rome calls them servi. They belong to a powerful senator named Pedanius Secundus. He is rich, he is important. He sits with other men in white togas and decides the business of the empire. His house is large, bright, and beautiful, but under the marble there is fear. The slaves of this house sleep on straw, in tiny rooms near the kitchen, the storerooms, and the stables. The floor is cold even in summer. They wake to the clang of a bell, to the rough voice of the steward, and to the fast steps of other slaves already running. Each person has a task. The water carriers fill jars from the fountain. The cook stirs porridge in a dark room with smoke-stained bricks. A girl named Dione polishes bronze lamps. An older man, once a teacher in another land, stands at the door to greet visitors with a soft smile and careful words. A small boy, only 12, sweeps fallen petals from yesterday's dinner. He is called Little One by those who still have warmth left in them. This is the rule. Everything must look easy. The water must always be there. The floors must shine. The master's sandals must be waiting at the right angle. The lady of the house must never see the work or the worry. When they do it well, the house looks like magic. When they fail, the magic breaks and pain follows. Rome likes order. Rome likes control. In the city, a slave who runs away may be branded on the forehead with the letter F for fugitivus, a runaway. Some wear iron collars with little plates that say, "Hold me, I am a slave, return me to my master." On farms and in the countryside, many slaves live behind bars in long buildings called ergastula. There chains scrape and men dream of daylight. In the mines and quarries, the worst places of all, the dark eats a person's name faster than hunger does. Everyone in the great house knows these things. They do not even have to say the words. The threat lives in the air like the smell of smoke. Yet, even under fear, people look for ways to stay human. A cook will slide a warm heel of bread to the little one when the steward is not looking. Two women will trade whispered songs from home as they wash wool in the courtyard. The older man, the one who used to teach, will quietly show Dione how to shape letters on a wax tablet with the back of a spoon. He tells her, if a mind can draw a letter, it can draw a map. She smiles, but she also glances over her shoulder. The steward does not like smiles. He says they waste time. On this morning, the steward is already angry. A basket of figs is bruised. A lamp went out in the night. He tells the water carrier his hands are slow, and the boy he calls Little One that his sweep is lazy. He lifts a thin whip of knotted straps called a flagrum. The first lash is always the loudest. Everyone hears it and works faster, even those who are not being struck. This is how Rome keeps the house steady. But here is the secret that Rome refuses to see. Steadiness costs. The cost is in the eyes that stop looking up. It is in the shoulders that fold inward. It is in the mouth that learns to say, "Yes, master," when the heart wants to say no. And sometimes the cost spills over. Sometimes a slave says no, aloud or in action. Sometimes a person refuses to be only a tool. Sometimes someone defies. What happens then? The answer is not simple. Because Rome is not simple. There are many kinds of defiance. There is the loud defiance of open revolt, like when Spartacus and others escaped the gladiator school and fought Rome itself. The price of that was the cross. Thousands of crosses lining the road from Capua to Rome, bodies left to warn the world to obey. There is the quiet defiance of delay, of hiding, of passing messages, of teaching a child to read when no one is watching. The price of that is harder to see. It is smaller, but it still hurts. Extra work, extra lashes, extra nights without sleep. And there is another kind, the most dangerous of all. The master is harmed or killed, and all the blame falls like a stone on every slave in the house. In the grand house of Pedanius Secundus, a whisper moves faster than a bell. The master is dead. Someone found him in his bed with his throat cut. The bronze door is shut, but word slips through cracks the way water finds a path. A maid hears it from a guard. The guard heard it from a freedman, a former slave who now wears a cap to show he is free and walks with a careful pride. The city soon knows. Rome always knows. The slaves know too, and their breath goes thin. Dione drops the lamp and it clatters across the floor. The little one stops sweeping and holds the broom like a shield. The older man sits down very slowly on a stool, and he does not look like a teacher anymore. He looks like someone standing by the edge of a cliff, listening to rocks slide. There is a law in Rome, very old, very hard. It says this: if a master is killed inside his own house, and the slaves did not stop it, then all the slaves of that house can be put to death. Not just the one who did it, not just the ones who were close, all. The law is older than most men now alive. The law was made when Rome was smaller and families were like little armies. A master trusted his household to guard him. If they failed, the law said they all failed together. This law is a sword that hangs by a thin thread over every slave in the city. Now the thread has been cut. Soldiers arrive. They lock the bronze door from the outside so no one can leave. The steward tries to talk, but his voice shakes. The soldiers tell him that the city prefect has given orders. No one is to enter or leave. The slaves will be counted. They will be held. The Senate will meet. The crowd will gather. There will be a decision. Rome likes words almost as much as it likes punishments. When there is a hard matter, the senators argue. They bring up old cases. They quote older men. They use a calm voice, even when speaking about death. In time, a decision comes down like a stone tablet. It is law again. Everyone obeys. But the city is not quiet. People press to the gates. Some hate slaves and want blood. Others pity them. They say, "How can we kill a girl who carries water? How can we kill a child?" Voices rise, and the street feels like a pot about to boil. The prefect fears a riot. He brings more soldiers. The bronze door of the house does not move. It is quiet on the inside and loud on the outside, and the quiet hurts more. Inside, the slaves sit on the floor of a long room. The air is tight. Someone is crying in a corner. Someone is praying in a language the guard cannot understand. Dione holds the little one's hand under her tunic so no one will tell her to let go. The older man, the teacher, watches the light crawl along the wall and thinks about the first time he drew a letter in the sand as a boy. He thinks too about defiance. He has seen it many times. He has seen a young man stop a blow by catching a wrist just once and then pay for that small courage with blood. He has seen a woman refuse to work on the day her child died, and he has seen her dragged by the hair until she could only whisper. He has seen two friends run. One was caught and branded, one became a dock worker under another name and sent coins in secret to the old house for years to buy small mercies for those still inside. He has seen a master sit quietly and sign a paper that freed a faithful slave. He has seen another master free a slave, then hire him back for low wages and laugh. He knows the truth. Rome's power is big, but not clean. It is a net full of knots, and sometimes a fish slips through, but most do not. He looks at Dione and the boy and thinks, what now? When a slave defied openly, talking back, refusing a command, striking a master. The usual punishments were clear: flogging with a flagrum, chaining, work in the mill, pushing a heavy stone in circles until the world itself seemed to turn without end. In some cases, the collar and the iron mark. In rare and terrible cases, the arena or the mines. Punishment meant to erase the person quickly or slowly, but fully. Rome liked punishments people could see. It thought fear would keep the rest in line. But this case is different. There is a dead master and a house full of people who did not, or could not, stop it. To the law, that is defiance, even for those who never raised a hand. To the law, the whole house is guilty. To the crowd, the whole house is a test. Are Romans still strong enough to carry out old rules, or will they soften? If they soften, what else will change? Men in power fear change more than they fear anything. Hours pass, the sun climbs, the stone floor warms, the door remains locked. Rumors seep in like fog. The Senate debated, people say. One old senator, Cassius, stood and said the law must be kept. Another voice, many voices, hesitated. What about the innocent? What about the children? The crowd outside the house is swelling, and the prefect worries the street will turn into a war if the soldiers try to pull hundreds of slaves through it. But the prefect also worries what will happen if Rome fails to punish. He imagines the whispers. Rome is soft. Rome is weak. He imagines other houses where slaves listen at doors and think, perhaps. The little one asks, in a voice like a mouse under a cupboard, "Dione, what will they do?" She does not answer. She smooths his hair with her palm. She has a little scar on the back of her hand from a broken pot. The cut healed white. It is the only mark on her that shows. The other marks are deeper. The older man takes a slow breath. He begins to speak, but very softly so the guards will not care. He talks not about law or pain. He talks about a road outside the city with flat stones and a small stream that runs beside it. He says that once on that road he saw a woman in a blue dress walk with her head high, even though she wore a collar. He says he saw a cart pass and splash her. She did not flinch, she just kept going. He says sometimes defiance is not a shout, sometimes it is a way of standing, sometimes it is a way of keeping the inside part of you alive. Dione listens, and her shoulders lower a little. The boy leans into her side. The guards shift their spears and look bored. The steward sits with his back to the wall, staring at his hands. He is a slave too, though he pretends he is not. Fear makes people strange. Toward evening, the bronze door groans. The prefect comes in with a small group of soldiers. He is tired. His eyes are red. He looks like a man who's been pushed from both sides all day and now must choose which push to obey. He unrolls a strip of wax with letters pressed into it. His voice echoes against the painted walls. The Senate has decided. The law will be kept. A sound goes through the room. It is not one sound. It is many sounds at once. A breath sucked in, a small cry, a whisper that stops in the throat. The prefect waits. He has more words, but he is used to being heard. He is not used to listening. He speaks again. The household will be taken to the place set aside for punishment. The streets will be cleared. No one will interfere. Those who try will be punished too. You will come quietly. Do not make this worse. His words are simple. His words are the same words Rome has used for a long time. Outside, the crowd rumbles, angry and afraid. Inside, Dione closes her eyes. The boy grips the broom until his knuckles go white. The older man looks at the prefect, then at the soldiers, then at the open door, and he wonders if there is any thread left to pull in this tight net, any action still possible that is not foolish but is still human. He thinks of letters. He thinks of the map he told Dione about. He thinks of a path between two hard places, obedience and despair. What really happens to slaves who defy their Roman masters? This is what they are: crushed, they are broken, they are made into warnings. But it is also this. Sometimes they leave a mark that Rome did not plan to show. Sometimes their pain forces the city to argue with itself. Sometimes a crowd gathers and will not look away. Sometimes a child who sees what the law does grows up and questions the law. Change is slow in Rome. It is a stone city. But stones move, one by one. Over years, no one counts, until the wall is different and no one can say when it began. The prefect rolls up the wax again. He turns to go. The soldiers lift their spears. The slaves stand, many on unsteady legs. The steward does not move until a guard tugs his sleeve. The little one drops the broom. It clatters on the floor, and the sound is far too loud for such a small thing. Dione bends to pick it up out of habit, then stops herself and leaves it there. They walked toward the door. On the threshold, the older man pauses. He looks at the bronze, at the crest of Pedanius Secundus, shining even in the dim light. He thinks, if a door can shine, can a story too? Can our steps through this door change a mind, if not a law? He does not know. He has never known less. But he turns to Dione and whispers, "Remember the letters. Remember the map." She nods, and they step out into the sound of the city. And there, in the press of soldiers and noise, something happens that was not in the prefect's plan. The crowd surges forward, not to strike the slaves, but to block the street. Men shout that the children must be spared. Women cry out that not all hands are guilty. Stones rattle but do not fly. A wall of people rises where there was only road. It is not victory, it is not freedom, it is only a pause, a held breath, a question thrown at the face of the law. If Rome gives way, the old rule breaks. If Rome does not, it must cut through its own people to reach its slaves. The soldiers lower their spears. The prefect lifts his hand. His mouth opens to give an order that will decide the night, and perhaps more nights after this. Will Rome carry out the old punishment to the last breath, or will the city's conscience force a crack in the stone? The prefect's hand is still raised when the street lifts its voice like a wave. It is not one sound, it is many. A roar, a weeping, a wordless plea. Faces press close, some people climb steps and walls to see. Others lock arms to form a human fence. The soldiers tighten ranks. Spear points lean forward, then back, then forward again. Dust hangs in the last red light of day. "Spare the children," a woman cries. "Not all are guilty," a man shouts. Another voice, raw and hard, answers, "Keep the law." Two laws live in Rome. One is old and written, carved into habits and stones. The master is a small king inside his house, and his household must guard him. If he dies by a slave's hand or under a slave's watch, the whole household will pay. The other law is newer and soft, not written anywhere. There are limits a crowd will accept, even from Rome. Sometimes that soft law wins for a day, sometimes it dies in the dust. The prefect knows both laws. He has worn the purple stripe long enough to respect the old one. He has walked through riots long enough to fear the new one. He reads the street like a map. He sees fear, yes, but he sees something else too: shame. The people do not want to watch babies die to prove Rome is strong. He lowers his hand. The soldiers do not move. He counts slow inside his head. 1, 2, 3, and then he speaks. "Clear the way," he says, but his voice is not a shout. "Do not strike unless struck. We go to the place of judgment. The Senate will speak again at dawn." Dawn. The word buys time. Time is a kind of mercy when no other mercy can be given. The soldiers open their formation just enough to make a narrow path around the human wall. They do not ram forward. They slide the line in small steps, using shields like doors to turn bodies aside without breaking them. The prefect walks at the head. Behind him the steward and the older man and Dion and the boy, and all the others move like a long, quiet river within high banks. Hands reach from the crowd, some to touch, some to offer a fig, a crust of bread, a whispered courage. A few hands try to grab and pull someone free. The soldiers knock those hands away with the flat of their blades, not the edge. The prefect hears a crack of wood, a gasp, a sob. He keeps walking. He tells himself that moving is better than standing and bleeding the day to death in the street. They pass under a small arch. The air grows cooler. Evening comes with the smell of damp earth and smoke. The torches go up, little suns on sticks, and the shadows leap. People follow at a distance, filling alleys and corners, whispering, arguing. A child asks aloud what judgment means. No one answers him. The word is too big for small mouths. Inside the slow-moving line, the older man speaks to Dione without moving his lips much. When we stop, do not sit with your back to open ground. Hey, she asks. Because the ground opens too, he says. Even stories have holes. His words make little sense to the boy, but he hears the low, steady tone and stays next to Dione's hip, keeping one fist wrapped in the edge of her tunic. He counts his steps, the way he always does when fear is larger than his chest. 27, 28, 29. He loses count when a man from the crowd holds out a small date, and he snatches it in surprise. The date is sweet water in his mouth, and he swallows guilt with it. He thinks of the broken broom, of the way it sounded on the floor, like a door he could not close. At last they arrive at a walled compound where Rome keeps many kinds of endings. It is not the arena with its roaring circus. It is a quieter machine, cells, courtyards, a room where records are kept, and another where hands tie knots. Some call it the prefect's yard, others call it by older names. No one calls it home. The iron gate opens, and the household of Pedanius Secundus is counted again. A clerk reads a list written on wax. Faces are matched to lines and scratches. The steward insists on speaking for each of his people, naming them in the order of the house. Kitchen, stable, bedchamber, garden, workshop. The clerk does not care about their skills, only their number. The older man watches his stylus press into the wax, letter by letter, line by line, the way fate seems to press into a life and leave marks that are hard to smooth. They are led to a wide yard covered in crushed stone. A water trough sits along one wall. A few bundles of straw lie piled in a corner. Guards take up posts outside. The gate clangs shut, and the sound rings in the bones. Dione guides the boy to the straw. He is straight back to the point of stiffness, as if standing too tall can keep fear from climbing onto him. Sit, she says. He does, but he does not let go of her tunic. She kneels and wets a cloth in the trough and wipes the dust from his face, then from her own. The older man stands nearby and studies the pattern of torchlight on the ground. He thinks about the word dawn. He tries to stretch it in his mind into a rope that reaches them. Tell me again, the boy says suddenly, voice small. About the woman in the blue dress. The older man looks down. She walked as if the collar could not touch her bones, he says. Some things iron cannot hold. The words settle around them like a thin blanket. In another corner, a few of the strong-armed men of the household talk low. How many guards? How high the walls? Whether any friends outside have coin or courage enough to help. One says the crowd might return by morning. Another says the crowd will forget while it sleeps. A third stares at his hands and says nothing. He is the one who used to lift amphore so easily, the market women called him Ox. Tonight his wrists tremble. Near the gate, the steward stands alone. He looks at the door as if it will open for him if he stares hard enough. Perhaps he imagines calling to the prefect by name, reminding him they have shared wine, that he sent a gift once, that he is different, better, almost a free man. Fear tells men lies like that. The steward breathes fast, and then slow, and then fast again. After a long time, he turns away and lies down on the stone without straw, as if to prove he is made of it. The night lengthens. The guards talk about dice and women and boots that need new nails. One hums a tune that is older than any law, 4 notes looped and looped again until it no longer means anything. In the yard, the slaves curl on straw or sit with their backs against the wall. Sleep comes and goes like a cautious animal. The older man does not sleep. He builds a small fire of words in his head, names, places, lines of poems, from a time when he was a teacher and thought words were the safest house a person could build. He repeats them until they make a circle, and inside that circle he finds a little warmth. After a while he hears a step he knows and opens his eyes. It is a guard younger than the others, carrying a small cup. He hesitates, then kneels and slides the cup toward the boy. "Water," the guard murmurs, eyes on the ground. "Thank you," Dione whispers. The guard nods once, stands and goes, leaving the kindness behind like a forgotten coin. Dione lifts the cup to the boy's lips. He drinks, and some spills, and she catches it with the cloth and smiles for the first time today. The older man sees the smile and tucks it away, a bright thread to tie to something in the dark. Across the yard, a low door opens to a little room. The prefect enters with a scribe. He sits at a table and calls the steward. One by one he hears facts already heard. The steward has no more truth to give. He does not know who killed Pedanius Secundus. He does not know when or why. He does not know who was where at what hour, not in a way that a Roman court would stamp as real. What he knows is the rhythm of the house, the way lamps are trimmed, the pattern of traffic in a corridor. But the prefect is not judging a theft or a boundary. He is escorting an old law through a night where even he can feel it dragging its feet. "Tomorrow," the prefect says at last, voice dull, "the Senate at first light, then we act." The steward opens his mouth, perhaps to beg, perhaps to bargain, but the prefect lifts a hand and looks at him. Not cruelly, but as a man who has reached the last plank of a bridge and sees only water ahead. The steward nods as if he understands, though he understands nothing that would help. Back in the yard, the older man finally sits. He leans his head against the wall and closes his eyes. He sees not sleep but a memory, a small schoolroom in Rhodes, salt wind, a boy drawing the letter A and laughing when his line goes crooked. He sees a bronze door with a crest. He sees a crowd trying to be a door. He breathes in, then out, counting without counting, until the sky begins to give up its stars. Dawn comes thin and grey. The guards rattle keys. The gate opens. The street is not empty. People have returned, some with bread in their cloaks, some with children on their hips, some with tight faces that do not want to be here but could not stay away. A line of soldiers waits to clear the path, harsher now, with orders sharpened overnight. The prefect stands tall and pale. The march begins. They move toward the place where the Senate meets. It is not a simple building, it is a stage where words put on armor. The crowd flows on both sides like a river split by a stone. Some cry, some curse, some pray out loud, a jumble of gods called to hear a human case. On a step, an old man shouts that Romans have always been strong because Romans keep their laws. A baker's wife cries back that strength is not killing children, but protecting them. Their words fly up and vanish in the pale light. Inside the Senate House, men in white sit on curved benches. Their faces are careful masks. Grief, resolve, boredom, pride, and, in a few, something like doubt. The case is known, the facts are fixed, the law is clear. But the street has made a crack in the day, and through it seeps a question. If a law that once kept order now creates a shame that breaks it, who is strong? The man who changes the law or the man who holds it? The senior senator speaks first. He quotes ancestors. He says the family is the root of Rome and the master is the root of the family. And if roots are cut, the tree falls. He says to spare the innocent is to invite the guilty to hide among them. His voice is steady and dry, like a legal tablet unrolled from a jar. Another senator, younger, with a scar at his lip, rises and says, many of the household were women and children and old men. He says to kill them is to turn an act of justice into a sacrifice to fear. He says Rome should be wise enough to tell one from many. His words make some noses flare and some shoulders stiffen. They make the prefect, standing at the edge with dust on his cloak, want to close his eyes for a breath he cannot draw. Voices rise and fall. Names of past cases are thrown into the air like coins. Some land with weight, some bounce and roll away. A few men say nothing at all and watch the ceiling, as if waiting for a bird to fly through and prove an omen they already believe. Outside, the yard is not a yard, it is a held breath. The slaves wait in a line. Dione holds the boy's hand in both of hers. The older man watches two ants drag a crumb across the stone and thinks about teamwork, about how even small lives carry weight if they pull together. He thinks about maps again, about paths drawn between things that look like they cannot be crossed. He thinks about a line that runs from this moment to one far off, to a place he cannot name where someone asks, was there a day when Rome felt a little sick about itself and did not ignore it? The gate of the Senate House opens. A messenger runs to the prefect. Words are exchanged too quickly to catch. The prefect's face does not change, but he draws in air and lets it out. He turns to the yard and lifts his right hand. The Senate, he begins, and then he stops. He looks at the crowd that has gathered, their faces upturned like fields of pale coins. He looks at the line of slaves, each a life, each a choice not made by itself. He looks at the soldiers, men who want a clear order so they can obey and go home untroubled. The Senate keeps the law, he says. But, he pauses again, and in the small space of that word, the whole yard tilts. But children will not die today. A sound breaks from the crowd. Not a cheer, not yet, but the first untying of a knot. The soldiers shift, the steward drops his head. Dione covers her mouth. The boy's fingers crush hers and are crushed in return. The older man closes his eyes and opens them again. He waits to hear the shape of the rest. The infants and the very young, the prefect continues, choosing words like stones across a river, will be given to the city to raise as wards. They will not be put to punishment with the rest. The law stands, the household pays, but Rome will not kill those who have not yet stood on their own feet. It is not mercy that saves all, it is not justice that spares many. It is a narrow path between. The crowd breaks into many pieces, joy for some, anger for others, confusion for many. A man cries that Rome is weak, a woman sobs thanks to any god who is listening. A soldier rubs his eyes with the back of his hand as if a gnat stung him there. The prefect lowers his hand. We move, he says. The line starts again, but it is a different line now. A city official steps forward with a nurse and two basket carriers. Tiny bodies are lifted out of the queue with great care, as if any quick motion might break the day in two. Dione watches as the boy looks at her, panic rising in his throat. He is not a baby. He stands on his own feet. He works. He is 12, and in Rome that is already a small man. He will not be taken to safety. Dione squeezes his hand until it hurts. "I will not let go," she says. The older man leans close. "Listen," he says to the boy. "I will speak when I must. You will do exactly as I say when I say it. Until then, breathe. In for 3, out for 3. Keep the numbers inside you where no one can take them." The boy nods, jaw tight, eyes too bright. He breathes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And the count steadies his ribs. They reach the place of punishment, a wide ground outside the tight veins of the streets where Rome shows itself to itself. A wooden platform stands ready, posts and ropes, a stand where a herald will read the decree. The crowd spreads along the edges, pressed back by soldiers who form a ring with shields and spears. Above the platform, the sky is so clean, it feels like a lie. The steward staggers once, as if the ground under him dropped a single finger's width. A man from the kitchen mutters a prayer to a river god he has not seen since he was taken from home. A girl from the dye room whispers the names of colours, blue, red, green, as if calling them will paint a door she can walk through. Dione swallows and tastes salt and dust. The boy's breath counts. The older man's eyes are dry and burning. A herald steps up. He unrolls a scroll. He reads the words that turn bodies into lessons. The law, the guilt of the household, the will of the Senate, the order of names, the method. His voice is trained to carry. It does. As the first names are called, there is a stirring at the edge of the crowd. Not a shout, not a charge, something quieter that moves strangely through the people like wind under a curtain. Heads turn, hands point, soldiers shift to face it, then hesitate, unsure. The prefect narrows his eyes. A small group walks forward, men in worn cloaks, women with scarfed heads, a few old soldiers with scars that Rome gave them long ago and never thanked them for. Their hands are empty, their steps are slow. They kneel, not to the prefect or the senate or the herald or the law, but in a line facing the platform, placing their bodies along the ground like a second threshold. An old soldier raises his voice so it will reach only where it must. "We ask for the old right," he says, breath shaking. "Let those who have served Rome stand as surety for one life, one only. Choose one, give one back to the crowd. Let a human debt be paid with human honor." It is not a law, it is a custom, half remembered, like a story told by grandfathers about a gentler day that may never have been as gentle as they say. But the words have a shape that fits the ear. The crowd stills. The soldiers look to the prefect. The prefect's mouth tightens. This is not in the tablets. This is not in the orders. This is a third path opening where there were only two. And third paths make men in command feel the ground slide. He could say no. He could cut the day clean again. But he hears the street as if it were a person breathing beside him. He hears what it will become if he speaks the hard syllable. He hears it break, and he sees stone and iron and flesh meet in a way no one will forget for years. He lifts his hand for the third time. "One," he says, voice flat. "One life may be claimed. Name it. Now." The old soldier bows his head. He turns, not to the crowd, but to the line of slaves. He searches faces the way a farmer studies sky. He stops on the older man, the teacher who has not taught in years. "Yours," the old soldier says softly. "We claim yours. If you will take a place in our house and teach our sons to make Let us walk. A ripple goes through the line, through the air. The older man blinks, slow, as if pulling himself back from a long way off. Dione's hand tightens on the boys. The steward looks at the ground, then at the sky, then at nothing at all. The prefect waits. The herald waits. The old soldier waits, eyes full, jaw set. This is the moment a story becomes another story. The older man turns his head to Dione and the boy. He knows he can say yes and step out and live. He knows he can say no and stand in the line and die with them. He knows that either choice will teach, because someone always watches when a person chooses. He feels the map inside him, the lines he has kept since he was young, twist into shapes he did not know it could make. He kneels, so he is at the boy's height. "If I go," he says, voice steady and soft, "I will not spend a day that does not try to pull you with me, by thought or coin or cunning. I promise it. If I stay, I will stand as your shadow does, until the sun is gone." The boy's lips move without sound. He is still counting. He stops. He swallows. He looks at Dione. Her eyes shine, but her chin is firm. She nods once, a nod that belongs to women who have made decisions with almost nothing in their hands and carried them like fire across water. "Go," she whispers. "Make the letters walk. Make them walk toward us." The older man closes his eyes just long enough to fix the words in a place he will never lose. He stands and faces the prefect and the old soldier. "I go," he says. The ring of soldiers opens a space. The older man steps out of the line. The old soldier reaches to help him, but does not touch, as if too much touch will break something tender. The crowd exhales in a sound that is not joy and not grief. It is something like relief, mixed with fear of what relief costs. The herald lifts the scroll again. The names continue. The older man turns once, only once, and finds the boy's face in the line. He puts his hand on his own chest, then opens it toward the boy, a small sign like a bird leaving a branch. The boy mirrors it, his mouth a thin, brave line. The prefect watches all of it, every flicker. He knows the hard work of the day is not done. He knows the law will be carried out. He knows the crowd may yet turn, or break, or go home hungry and ashamed. He knows this too. A door he did not plan has been opened, and men will talk about it in bars and markets and small rooms for weeks. The old law will still stand tonight, but a new question has been pushed into the city like a wedge. The herald calls the next name. A drum somewhere on the wall beats once. The platform creaks. The boy stops counting again. He closes his eyes. Dione bends her head so her cheek touches his hair. The older man, now outside the line, grips the old soldier's sleeve as if to steady both of them. The sky is very blue. The prefect's throat works. He raises his hand for the fourth time, and the day tilts again. And we leave it there, on the edge of the sound that is about to come. The prefect's hand is high when hoofbeats cut the air like a whip. A rider pushes through the edge of the crowd, cloak flung back, bronze seal bright at his throat. He does not slow. Soldiers part, dust follows him like a tail. He leaps from the horse while it is still moving and goes to one knee before the prefect, arm outstretched, a tablet of wood and wax in his palm. "From above," the rider says, breath sharp, "by fast hand. Read." The prefect takes the tablet. He does not open it at once. He looks at the line of slaves, at the old soldier kneeling, at the older man who has just stepped out of death on the strength of a custom older than anyone here. He looks at the sky that tried to be clean. Then he breaks the cord and unrolls the message. His eyes move left to right, left to right. Something hard settles in his jaw. When he looks up, he is not the man who tried to make a narrow bridge between two cliffs. He is the cliff. By command, he says, voice bare, the household dies, all of it. No exception by age, no custom stands against law. The city will be held, the example must be made. The words fall like stones. Even those who do not hear them know them. The silence after is a silence people know in their bones. A woman covers her mouth with both hands. The old soldier's shoulders sink. The herald takes a step he was not told to take. The boy stops breathing for 2 beats, then drags air in like a man pulled from a river. The prefect lowers the tablet. He looks at the older man. The older man looks back and knows the thin door he just passed through has shut on his heels. There is no anger on his face. He has been under doors like this all his life. The old soldier speaks, voice rough. We asked for one. You ask, the prefect says. He lifts the tablet as if it were a mirror he is forced to stare into. I am told to answer. There is a brief, bright thing in the older man's eyes. Pity. Not for himself, but for the man who must carry words that will rot inside him. He turns to Dione and the boy. He does not walk back to the line. He returns to it like a tide going home. Diona's mouth opens, closes. Her chin lifts. She has the face of someone who will hold a burning bowl if asked, and not spill. The boy's fingers find the older man's hand and grip it. The older man bends so his forehead rests for a breath against the boy's hair. Letters, he whispers, in your palm. He presses his finger into the boy's skin and draws a small curve, then a line across it. A, he says. He draws another, down, across, down. H. He draws a third, and the boy, breath shaking, whispers, M. Dione's lips move with them, silent, the shapes of sounds passing across them like small birds. The prefect raises his hand for the 4th time. There is no tilt now. The day tips and slides, and there is no stopping it. Form ranks, he says to the soldiers. Hold the circle, no one in, no one out. The soldiers obey. Shields lock. Spear points show their cold teeth. The crowd swells and then presses back on itself like water against glass. The old soldier does not rise. He lowers his head to the dust. Other knees follow, not as a block, not as a charge, but as a kind of prayer that will not be heard and will be kept anyway. The herald climbs the platform. His hands shake, but his voice does not. He reads the law that Rome is proud of when it is not ashamed. He reads the judgment that Rome fears and loves. He reads the order of names. The first is a man from the stables. He steps forward when told, because stepping forward is the only act left that belongs to him. 2 lictors with polished rods and leather straps take him. They bind, they work with speed. Practice has taught their hands to move faster than thought. There are many to get through. The crowd moans as one body, and then as many, and then as a scattered field of separate sounds. A child cries, high and thin, a sound like thread breaking. The child is not in the line. He is on a shoulder in the crowd, where he will carry this day in his sleep for years. The prefect does not watch the hands, he watches faces. His own soldiers, the slaves, the crowd beyond the shields. He counts how many will break, how many will stand, whether the city will hold. He has learned that a city is a skin, and once a skin tears, everything inside is at risk. Dione keeps her gaze low and steady. Breathe, she tells the boy, the word only air. In 3, out 3. When his chest forgets, she presses her palm to his ribs to remind them. The old man whispers letters even as names are called, as if laying planks down in a flood. S-R-E. He does not choose the order. He takes what the air gives him. He speaks, too, to Dione's ear, words that try to give her a rope to hold. "You taught your hands to polish bronze until the light found them," he murmurs. "Teach your mind to polish a thought the same way. It will shine when nothing else does." She nods, a movement so small it could be a swallow. She thinks of the lamp she dropped when the whisper ran through the house. She thinks, with a strange, low wonder, "I left the broom on the floor." The thought warms her for one heartbeat, as if she had chosen something in a world where choices are rare. The line moves. Pain is a river that carries the same things over and over. Breath, sound, light, dark. It does not need many new words. The crowd's heat presses in. At the edges, men argue in grunts and jaw-clenched phrases. Some want to rush the shields. Some want to go home and never speak about this day, and yet they stand. A handful of stones clatter uselessly near the soldiers' feet, a protest thrown only so the throwers can say they did something. The old soldier lifts his head. His eyes are wet, not from fear, from old memory. He remembers a winter war, a fire burned too low, a boy sharing a crust in a ditch. He remembers swearing to be a man who kept men alive if he could. He cannot today. He kneels anyway. A guard looks down at him and then away. The steward is called. He straightens his tunic as if about to enter a dining room with important guests. He takes 2 steps, then turns his head. His eyes flicker over the line as if seeking someone to announce him. There is no one. He faces front again and keeps walking. "My fault," he says, though no one asks and the words fall at his feet like broken coins. "My fault for not hearing the knife in the air. My fault for not being stone and wind at once." The lictors do their work. The steward goes where he must. The line grows shorter by one. A youth is called. He is older than the boy and younger than the men who have learned how to die without shaking too much. He shakes. He tries to stop. He cannot. A hand reaches from the line and touches his elbow. Quick, just once. And the youth straightens, as if a pin had been put in his spine. He goes. The hand that steadied him drops. It is Dione's. The herald reads and reads. Names run into each other until they are only the sound of a river in a tunnel. The sun climbs. Heat wraps necks. The smell of sweat, of dust, of fear, of the oil on leather, of the iron of tools, of the human body when it understands it is small, all of it makes a stew that sits high in the throat. A woman in the crowd faints and is caught, and no one looks away from the platform even then. Near midday, a murmur at the ring. A woman in a plain dress, hair braided close to her head, is trying to push forward. She is not young. She is not strong. She is stubborn. "Let me in," she says. "My sister is there. Let me touch her hand." A soldier bars her with his shield. She does not stop trying. The soldier looks helplessly at the prefect. The prefect shakes his head once. The soldier raises the shield higher. The woman lowers her head against it and breathes like a bull. She does not win. She does not leave. Inside the line, the older man lays more letters in the boy's palm. "Oh," he says. "Home. Round. Safe." He draws a V. A cup for water. He draws an I, a line that does not bend. The boy nods, face wet without the relief of crying. He holds still for the drawing, as if the shapes can nail him to the world. Dione watches the prefect between her lashes. She studies the way his hand twitches when a cry rises from the crowd. She notes that he rubs his left thumb with his right forefinger when the herald's voice stumbles. She files those small truths in the cabinet of her brain. She has no use for them today, but her mind makes shelves for everything. It is how she has kept herself from falling through the floor. The prefect hears his own name in the crowd as a curse, as a plea, as a question. He keeps his face as still as the marble men he has judged under. But inside, a small blade works at him. He thinks of the message tablet in his hand, of the neat letters, of the command that came heavier than stone. He thinks of the single time he went against order years ago to spare a thief who had returned what he stole. It had felt clean. This feels like holding a door while wind tears at it, knowing the hinges will go whether he opens or not. In the early afternoon, the herald takes water, voice briefly broken. Another man reads. His tones are rounder, his Latin smoother. He has done this before. He does not look at faces. The boy's legs shake. Dione shifts so his shoulder can rest against her. A name is a boat, she whispers. We have one. We have 3. She means the letters in his palm. She means his given name and the secret name only 2 people still call him in the dark. A name from home. She means the name she gave him in her head when she first saw him asleep with a broom for a pillow. Little one, the name that stopped her from turning hard stone all the way through. Draw one in me, he says, strangled. She presses her finger to his wrist and draws slow. L, she says. She draws another. I, she draws another. V. Her mouth is dry. E. The line moves. She does not take her finger away. A small scuffle at the ring. A man with a shaved head lunges forward with a tool hidden in his sleeve. A cobbler's awl, thin and mean. A soldier knocks it from his hand with the averted rim of a shield and drives him back with the boss into his chest. The man folds. The crowd surges, then stills. The awl glints in the dust like a fishbone. A child will pick it up later and keep it as a secret, thin and dangerous in his pocket, a thing he will turn over and over while he grows into a man who says too little and thinks too much. The old soldier rises. He cannot kneel while the ground moves under him like a ship. He goes to the ring and stands where the prefect can see him. He does not beg. He simply takes off his cloak and folds it across his forearms, the way men who have seen too much fold a shroud. The prefect's jaw ticks. He looks away and back. He feels the city like a fever. The names go on. At last, the herald's eye drops to a line that is short and plain. A girl from the lamp room. Dione knows it is her before the man says it, the way a person knows a storm is coming by the taste of the air. Her hand tightens on the boy's. The older man's fingers find hers and squeeze once, a blessing pressed into skin. Dione, the herald calls. She steps forward. The world does a strange thing then. It grows very clear and very slow. The band of her sandal rubs her heel. A fly walks on her forearm and lifts away. A loose thread on the herald's sleeve sticks to the parchment and pulls free. She notices these things because they are small and true, and she wants this last little stretch of walking to be filled with things she can hold, not with thoughts that spill. She pauses a single heartbeat and turns her head. Letters, she says to the boy, and she smiles. It is not a wide smile. It is a straight, brave line. Make them walk. The boy makes a sound that breaks and does not heal. The older man holds him. The old soldier covers his face with his hands. The prefect presses his fingers to the bridge of his nose as if to push pain back into bone. Dione reaches the platform. A lictor steps forward. He is careful, not cruel. He has a sister her size, perhaps. He does what he is told, with hands that try not to shake. Dione looks at the wood, at the rope, at the sky that wants to be blue and fails. Her mind, trained by polish and practice, finds the one place where it still has a wheel to turn. She chooses to stand straight. A cry goes up from the crowd. Her name, but not the name the house used, not the small Roman word that was pushed on her like a lid. It is a sound from another language, a shape that hitched a ride across water and years and found her here. For an instant her eyes widen, then soften. She does not turn to look. She looks only at the line where the sky meets the roofs, a line that always promises roads on the other side. The herald raises his hand. "Stop," the prefect says. The herald freezes. A ripple runs along the line of soldiers, relief, annoyance, fear. All the brothers in the same family. The crowd's noise collapses inward, not quiet, but less. Dione does not move. She has learned that stopping often becomes a harder kind of going. The prefect lowers his hand slowly. He beckons a centurion. They speak at a breath's distance. The centurion nods, jaw set, eyes iron. The prefect turns, steps down from the low stand, and walks to the edge of the soldiers' ring where the old soldier stands. "Bring me the messenger," the prefect says to no one and everyone. The man with the tablet appears like a shadow called by name. The prefect holds out the wax again. "Read me the last line." The messenger reads, lips barely moving. "The example must be made and public order maintained," he says. The prefect nods once. He looks at the old soldier. He looks at the crowd. He looks at Dione, at the rope that has not yet learned the shape of her wrists. "Order," he says, as if tasting the word for poison. "This is order?" The old soldier meets his eyes. "Sometimes," he says, "order is only fear with a clean face." The prefect's mouth twitches, almost a laugh, nowhere near it. He turns back to the platform. His voice carries, trained by rooms of stone. "Hear me. The law stands. The example will be made. But the city will not tear itself apart to feed it. The ancient right of mutatio poni, exchange of penalty, will be used where it keeps order without shaming Rome further." A tremor runs through the crowd, as through a beast that cannot decide whether to charge or lie. The herald stares. The centurion's teeth show in a grimace that is not quite a smile. Those whose work keeps Rome turning, mill hands, smiths, water haulers, the prefect says, measuring, choosing, may be sent to the state's mills and quarries instead of death. They will not return. They will work until they are done. The household will still pay. Rome will still see, but we will not feed the ground with every drop we can wring from these bodies and call it law. It is not mercy. It is a colder trade. The mines eat names. The quarries grind bones into the dust that makes the roads. The mills rub shoulders into stone. But people hear the word that is not spoken. But the sound that rises is ragged and unsure, and full of hope that knows itself to be small. The messenger blanches. "Sir, the tablet." "The tablet tells me to hold the city," the prefect says, and for one instant his voice is only a man's, not an officer's. "So I will hold it." The centurion barks orders. A new line is made within the line. Men are sorted by trade, by sinew, by the look of long strength in a forearm. Smiths, porters, mill turners, water bearers, those with narrow shoulders, with weak lungs, with the injuries that have been hidden under tunic sleeves, these are kept for the platform. Rome does not waste time teaching a stone to sing. Dione stands with the rope at her wrist, listening. She does not think the word live, she thinks walk. The older man's finger had pressed it into the boy's skin. Now she presses it into her own mind. "Dione," the centurion says, checking lists he does not have. "What are you?" "Lance," she says. He looks at her hands. They are deft, scarred, strong enough for small work, not broad enough for the great stones. He gestures to the left. Platform. Her throat moves. She does not plead. She has seen pleading feed men who came hungry to it. She has seen pleading turn into a belief that mercy is owned, not given. The boy makes a sound and tries to run to her. The older man catches him, arms like iron that learn to bend. "No," he says into the boy's hair, "not like this." A guard half steps toward them and then stops when he sees the older man's grip and the boy's face. The sorting moves like a saw through wood that is not yet dry. It sticks, backs up, goes again. The sun slides. The platform bleeds shadow. The old soldier watches the prefect watch his own doing. He thinks, this is how a man breaks without cracking his face. He takes 2 steps forward, not enough to be a threat, enough to be counted as a voice. Take me, he says, loud enough that it is a stone thrown into a wide pond. I will go to the mills in place of one. The centurion turns, anger sparking, but the prefect lifts a finger and the anger dies. He does not nod. He does not smile. He points at a man in the line whose arm shakes with a tremor you would not see if you were not looking for it. Him, the prefect says, and the old soldier moves to the miller's side without being told twice. The crowd changes shapes. It is no longer only a ring. It is a set of threads, small and human, trying to weave across a cut. A woman offers herself for a girl with a bent back. A grey-haired mason lifts his hands for a boy whose lungs whistle. The centurion swears and makes a mark in the air. The prefect nods twice, no more. It is still a killing. It is still a taking. It is now also a barter. Rome learns new words, the way it always has, under pressure, while pretending it knew them all along. The herald lowers the scroll. The platform waits. The new line shifts and settles. The message tablet hangs at the prefect's belt like a stone he cannot put down. Dione, the centurion says again, as if repeating her name can change it into another. He gestures. She steps forward, and again the world narrows to the height of a heel, the weight of a rope, the taste of dust. Wait, someone says. Not the prefect, not the centurion, not the herald. The voice comes from the ring where the soldiers stand shoulder to shield. A woman steps into the space the old soldier left. She wears no badge. Her dress is simple, dyed the green that is cheap because it fades. She holds nothing in her hands. Her eyes are the color of wet stone. Take me for her, she says. By what right? The centurion snaps, weary past patience. By none, she says. By the same right you use when the tablet does not have a line for your choice. The prefect looks at her for a long breath. Who are you? He asks, though he knows it does not matter. A midwife, she says simply. I have carried lives in my hands. Let me carry one more to the dark if I must. There is a small sound from the crowd, the noise people make when someone lifts something heavy alone. The centurion shakes his head. He would rather hold a wall than a human tangle. The prefect looks at Dione. He looks at the boy. He looks at the old soldier now standing in the miller's line with his folded cloak. He raises his hand. Everything holds. He opens his mouth, and a horn sounds from the far end of the field, a hard, bright note, a new unit of soldiers arriving, the edge of the city's patience marching on iron feet. The prefect's gaze cuts to the standard. The new men will not barter. They will read the tablet and make it into a blade. He has moments, not minutes. He points at Dione, he points at the midwife, he points at the mills, he points at the platform. His hand draws a map only he can see. Then he speaks a sentence that will be told 2 ways in the baths for months, as courage, as betrayal. What he says will decide where Dione walks and where the boy's letters lead, and whether the city's hard face learns even the smallest softness before the horn's echo dies. The horn's note hangs, hard, bright, unforgiving. The prefect does not flinch. He has counted days by sounds like this, the crack of a standard in wind, the thud of a gavel in court, the hush when a room understands a new rule has been born. He points, swift, spare, a map in the air. Hear me, he says. The law stands. The example is made. But the city is held by hands, not blood alone. He turns to the woman in green. Midwife, you will not die in another's name. You will go with the city's wardens. You will take the infants to the house set for them, feed them, wash them, teach them to breathe without fear. That is your service. He points to Dione. Dione, you go to the state's mills. He looks at the boy. He hesitates a beat, only Dione feels. The boy, he says, goes to the water haulers under guard. Mutatio poene. The state will use what strength it can keep. A shock, small, bright, runs through the line like sparks along dry straw. It is not freedom, it is a different chain. But chains that move are not the same as chains that end. The centurion's jaw works. He barks orders. The new unit crests the far edge of the crowd, iron teeth in the sun, and slows, reading the field, the ring of soldiers, the raised platform, the faces that have learned to hold still. The herald, throat burned raw, lifts his scroll again. The prefect lifts the tablet at his belt, looks once at the carved letters, then tucks it away, as if he were putting a knife back in a sheath he hates to wear. Get them moving, he tells the centurion, before we lose the city. Sorting now. Not the kind done by friendly hands over a winter basket, but the sure, fast division of a state that wants to keep mourning from becoming a riot. Guards pull a cord across the ground, one line to the platform, one line to the mills, one to the wardens with the baskets for infants, now heavier in the arms of the woman in green and the nurse beside her. Dione, the centurion calls. His voice is a hammer on anvil. This way! He steps, rope at her wrist, chin level. The boy moves with her, but a guard blocks him, glancing to the prefect for confirmation. Waterholder's line, the prefect says, clipped. Keep him near her until they separate, then straight to the yard. Mark him with the state's collar. The boy's mouth opens on a sound that is not a word. Dione presses her hand to his back. Numbers, she whispers. In 3, out 3. Hold them. The older man touches each of them, palm to palm to palm, his old teacher's blessing. Make the letters walk, he tells the boy. Make them cross water. To Dione he says, polish the dark. Lamps were made for night. He does not tell either of them that he hears the platform calling his name with a voice as flat as stone. The old soldier, already folded into the miller's line by his own demand, takes off his belt and binds it around his cloak so it will not tangle his legs. He meets the prefect's eye and nods once. A soldier who sees him wonders briefly what honor feels like when it is heavy. The crowd breathes out in 1,000 small noises, relief, rage, misery. Some cry that the prefect is weak, others call him man, a few spit because there must be spitting if a day is to feel like Rome has still got taste. But when the new unit halts in a disciplined square and the horn sounds again, the city does not split. It holds, for now. The platform begins its work. The herald reads. The lictors move, the line to the mills grows, the river of punishment splits and keeps flowing. This is Rome's genius, 2 channels, 1 source. The prefect watches the edges. He watches where walls can tear. He has seen cities die, not from a single blow, but from a day like this, when a rule made men stop recognizing themselves. He counts the places that might rip. He names them inside his skull. Then he moves. Move them, he orders. Now, before the crowd grows teeth. The miller's cord. Dione, the boy under guard, the old soldier, the strong-armed men marked for state labor, files toward the far gate, where carts wait. Iron rings at ankles. Collars are fitted. A curved plate with a small coal tag hammered to the throat, stamped with the state's mark and the words no one needs to read to understand. Property of Rome. The collar presses the boy's skin. The tag rests like a coin on his chest. He swallows and feels it knock his throat. At the gate, a clerk with quick dry hands scratches names into wax. He asks no questions that matter. "Origin?" he asks the old soldier, and the old soldier answers with a unit and a place where the wind is a knife 2 months of the year. The clerk grunts. "Useful," he says. He thins his mouth at Dion's profession, lamps and flicks his stylus toward the column marked "Mill, not mine." He does not look at the boy at all until the guard says, "Water hauler," and then he nods as if presented a bucket. They are loaded onto carts, plank beds with iron rings in the rails. Dione sits, back straight, rope at her wrist, collar at her throat, the boy's shoulder pressed to hers so tightly it makes her arm ache. The old soldier takes the low edge, feet planted, as he has done on too many wagons that carried men to places men do not come back from. The prefect steps to the cart. He does not climb in. He looks up at them as a man looks up a steep hill. "Listen," he says, low. The guard on the wheel pretends not to hear. "Janiculum Mills, then outposts on the Tiber, then perhaps farther. Keep the count, keep the letters. If you can choose to share bread, share it. If you can choose to rest when you are told to stand, stand anyway." Dione's mouth twitches, almost a smile, not a smile. "If I can choose to straighten a lamp," she murmurs, "I will." The boy lifts the tag at his throat with 2 fingers. "I will learn its shape," he says, small and stubborn, "so it will not make me less." The prefect nods. He wants to say he is sorry. He wants to say the word forgive and find out if it can be said by a man who carries a tablet with lines that kill. He says nothing. He steps back. He gestures. "Oh." The carts roll, the iron rings bite and then settle. The crowd parts with a sound like cloth ripping. Some bless, some curse. A few throw nothing because they do not know what nothing can do. The new unit stands like a wall that learned to walk. The platform continues, voice and rope and wood and law. Out through the gate, under an arch that has watched 1,000 processions, triumphs, funerals, tax wagons. Go the condemned who will live to be used. The road is bright with powder. The sun makes hard shadows under wheels. In one alley, a boy sees the state's collar on a child's neck and feels something in him turn and harden. He does not know the word for it yet. He will learn it later. It will be long. They pass the forum, the markets, the gossiping statues. They pass a sidewalk where a scribe has scratched a sign offering his services, letters for hire. The older man sees it and closes his eyes for one heartbeat, a small prayer to a god of lines and shapes. At the river, barges squat low in the water. Men with ropes shout in voices like cracked amphorae. The carts crackle up the planks. Dione breathes the wet smell, mud, fish, tar, reeds. The boy watches the water slap wood and tries to count the beats, but they are too many. He goes back to 3 and holds it like a coin in his fist. They float. Rome slides by. Tile roofs, laundry white as a gull's wing. Bridges with crowds pressed along their rails to watch the line of collars go. On one span, 2 boys lean over the parapet and spit for sport. The spit falls short. They yell with laughter. The old soldier looks up and for a second sees their fathers in a winter ditch, and his jaw locks. They disembark on the west bank where the hill rises. The mills of the state hum, a dull grinding sound like teeth that never rest. Here the city turns grain to flour for its people. Hand mills, donkey mills, great frames where men push bars in circles until the world blurs. The air is flour and sweat and the sour of spilled mash. The floor is packed hard, patterned with ruts. Stone wheels whisper and roar. Overseers move like shadows where light does not reach. A foreman meets the new load with a board and a look that has never once seen a person, only weight and time. "Send the big ones to the great stones," he says, without pointing. His hands know the shape. "Water haulers over there. Lamp girl to night shift. Old veteran." He squints, spine straight, arms still good, to the upper frames. He can shout rhythm. The old soldier grunts, half pride, half pain. Dione watches the place where night lives even in day. The lamp racks, the shadowed aisles between wheels. It is her work again, fire, wick, oil, but with a chain at the throat and the roar that never sleeps. She sets her jaw. She will keep flame steady where men forget sky. A guard with a dull kindness, one who has learned to keep his officers and his own soul both with the smallest degree of trouble, touches the boy's shoulder. "Here," he says, nodding toward a row of yokes where boys walk backward with poles and leather buckets, filling cisterns that feed troughs that keep animals from dropping in harness. "Not the worst," he lowers his voice, "but keep clear of the wheels when you can. They do not forgive." The boy nods. He cannot yet hear compliments without flinching, but he understands warnings. They are a language Rome teaches well. He touches the tag at his throat. 1, 2, then drops his hand. The older man presses his palm to the boy's head one last time. "AHMS-REOVILE, he whispers. "Not in order, in all the wrong order, as if to prove order is not the only thing that keeps a mind from breaking." The boy closes his eyes and says the shapes inside himself. A horn sounds again. Here, not in the square, a different pitch, shift change. Men step into the circle of bars. Others step out and slump onto benches like sacks. Sweat makes white tracks in flour on backs and shoulders. A man with a cough that will not stop and never will again, bends double, then straightens with his teeth showing like bones. He gets back under a yoke because here the choice is move or be moved. Dione is given a tray of clay lamps and a jar of oil. Her rope is cut from wrist to collar, a different kind of tether, so she can climb the narrow stairs to the upper gallery and keep the lamps full. "No darkness," the foreman snaps. "Men, slow down, in dark." She nods as if he has told her a secret. In her head, her teacher's voice, "Polish the dark." She climbs. The gallery rails are sticky with oil and hands. She lights, trims, fills, moves. The rhythm steadies her breathing. At each lamp she touches, she thinks a letter, presses it into her mind as if into wax. "A," she says in silence, "H, M." She repeats them over and over, building a path where none was given. Below, the old soldier sets a beat with his voice. Low, even, the kind of sound a man makes when he wants others to trust his lungs. "Left," he calls. "Left, left." The great stone turns, drinking grain, spitting flour. He glances up and sees a girl move along a rail, with little flames like tame stars at her fingertips. He thinks, if a god asked me to say what Rome is, I would say this: a voice and a wheel, and a girl with fire. He does not know if that is praise. The boy shoulders his pole and learns the paths between systems. He stumbles. He recovers. He watches older water haulers shift weight with a hip at the corner, slip the yoke to the other side, ease strain before it screams. He imitates. One man, lips split, nods, tiny, there and gone. It is a lesson, a permission. An adoption that does not need names. Night falls. Night does not fall here. The lamps keep it on a leash. Dione learns the places where drafts steal flame and the nooks where soot gathers and suffocates a wick. She works like a woman with a life to keep alive that is not her own body. In a way, it is not. It is a circle of men who move because they can see. It is a boy who will come up to sleep for an hour and need a corner where the dark is kind. It is an old soldier who will find her with his eyes, once each turn, as if to say, "Still here? Still here." She answers with a steady hand. At dawn, another dawn, not the one that began with bronze and tablets. She is marched to a bare yard where a clerk presses bread into her hand and half a fig into the boy's. They sit on a step, back to back, because backs to the world are always safer when they touch. The old soldier squats beside them and works a knot out of his knee with 2 thumbs. He does not speak. He does not need to. His breath tells them what he is, a pair of bellows that learn to keep fire living in winter. The guard saunters by, loose shoulders, eyes heavy, a man more tired than cruel. He stops, looks at the 3 of them, looks past them, looks back. He drops his voice. There is a place, he says, as if telling a rumour his wife swore him to silence over, in the upper storeroom when the second bell is done. The foreman sleeps then. If a man were to teach a boy to scratch letters in flour on a plank, and if a girl were to sweep that flour away after, I do not see it. He walks on. The boy turns his head so sharply he knocks Diona's shoulder. The old soldier's mouth softens. Dione wipes the corner of her eye with the heel of her palm. We will polish the dark, she says again, because the phrase has made a home in her now. They begin a life inside the punishment. It has rules that are not written on tablets. Never walk under a bar. Never take all the water in one go. Trade bread for a heel of cheese only with the man who looks you in the eye. Save one secret kindness each day for the day after, when you will need it more. Outside the mills, Rome goes on. The platform finished its lesson. The crowd went home, mouths full of ash, some hearts full of iron, some full of water. In the baths that evening, men told the day 2 ways. One said, a prefect saved Rome with a hard mercy. Another said, a prefect shamed Rome by disobeying a clean law. The tablet said nothing more than they always say, that Rome stood. The prefect sits alone in a room where the lamp smoke has stained the ceiling like a dark sea. He sets the wax tablet, that tablet, on the table and does not open it. He does a thing he has not done since he was a boy with a farmer's father and a soldier's uncle. He dips a stylus and writes on a scrap, a list of names he can remember without asking a clerk. He writes slowly, as if letters were weight. Pedanius Secundus is the first name. He makes himself write it. He adds the steward, he adds the youth who shook, he adds a man from the stables who did not slip on the plank, he adds a woman whose name he did not hear, but whose chin he will remember. He adds Dion, he adds a boy with a tag that did not own him, he adds an old soldier who traded breath for someone else's lungs. He blows on the ink and folds the scrap and tucks it in the lining of his belt. He knows it will not change law. He knows a list is not a shield. He does it because there are days when a man must choose what he keeps, or he learns he has kept nothing. At the mills, the second bell comes. The foreman snores in his chair. Dione climbs to the upper storeroom, sweeps flour into a neat thin river across a plank, and nods to the boy. The old soldier blocks the stair with his broad body and a cough that sounds like an old dog's voice if anyone comes. The boy dips his finger into the flour and looks at Dione. She nods again. He draws the curve the older man traced into his palm. Slow, careful, breathing on the count. A, he whispers. He draws the next. Down, across, down. E, he draws M. He draws E. He draws L. He draws I. He draws... Dione breathes the words with him, as if they were a prayer. She smooths the board with her hand to erase the line, not because she is ashamed, but because secrets that live must move. They work, they carry, they learn the paths of water and flower and breath. At night, Dione sits with her back to a warm wall and presses the fingertips of one hand into the palm of the other and makes letters walk where no one but she can see them. The old soldier teaches the boy how to set weight in his hips so his knees will last one more day. The boy teaches the old soldier a counting song that is only 3 and 3 and 3, and a breath that smooths edges. Days pass. Backs bend and unbend, collars rub, skin hardens where it must and stays soft where it can. Dione begins to know the names of foremen, the names of the kind guards, the names of the narrow cracks of time when a mind can widen. The boy begins to know the sound of his own breath when it is tired, and the sound when it is breaking, and the difference matters. The old soldier begins to know when to use his voice and when to let the wheels hum without it. Then a rumour walks into the mill as rumours do, barefoot, bold, wrong in details, right in shape. It says a clerk in the city's record house found a note in the margins of a witness list from the house of Pedanius Secundus. A mark that was not a mark, a letter that was not there before. It says a freedman with a thin mouth and a habit of listening in doorways is speaking a name in wine shops when he is sure he is not being heard. It says the knife that cut the master's throat did not come from a slave's hand at all. The rumour is a fish you cannot hold, but men catch at it, women bend ears to it, boys carry it between buildings like bread. A guard, the same one who told them about the flower plank, leans against the rail while Dione fills a lamp and says, "Keep your head down. Something is stirring in the records." The old soldier hears it and tightens his belt. The boy hears it and sings his counting song with too much hope in its notes. Dione hears it and does what she has learned is the bravest thing a person can do in Rome on an ordinary day. She keeps her hands steady, because rumour, if it is to become a fact, must walk through rooms with tables and wax and men who will not look where they do not have to. And a fact, if it is to become change, must climb a hill taller than Janiculum and stand in a wind that will push it back until it forgets why it started. But sometimes a small mark, pressed into the edge of a tablet by a hand that could not press harder, waits like a seed under stone. And sometimes a prefect, who made a hard trade, writes a list he cannot show and cannot throw away. And sometimes a girl who polishes darkness keeps a lamp steady long enough for someone to see what had always been there, and could not be named, until a light was kept still. If the rumour is true, if the knife was not a slave's, then Rome did more than keep a law. It made a mistake so large the city will hear it ring when it sleeps. If the rumour is not true, if pain is only pain again, then what a person does with that, in a mill where night never falls, is what tells whether the inside part of them lives or not. The guard coughs at the stair. The foreman stirs in his chair. The boy wipes the plank clean with the side of his hand. Dione caps the oil. The old soldier shifts his weight and clears his throat to set a fresh beat for a fresh hour. The day rolls. The wheel turns. The lamp burns steady. And somewhere in the city, behind a door where lamps are trimmed and words are burned into wax, a stylus lifts, hesitates, and begins to write a name that was not supposed to be written. Whose name it is, and where it will lead, is what the morning after this night will decide. Morning comes to Rome like a bruise changing colour. The mills hum. The platform in the square is already scrubbed. Water runs red at the drain and then clear. Vendors call as if nothing happened. Children throw nuts and count the hits. The city chooses to keep walking. But in a narrow room, behind a locked door, the record house where wax tablets sleep, one line refuses to lie still. A junior clerk sits alone, with a lamp and a stack of wax. He has small hands and careful eyes. He is the kind of man Rome uses to hold all the little truths it does not want to carry in its mouth. Last night, when the witness list from the house of Pedanius Secundus came back for storage, he saw a trace in the edge of the wax. One letter pressed where no letter should be. then smoothed, then pressed again, as if a mind fought with a hand. He lifted the tablet to the lamp. The light showed a shallow groove. The groove was shaped like the first stroke of a name. He slept badly. At dawn he sent a note. The prefect comes with dust still on his sandals. He looks as if he has not put his head down since the horn called iron into the square. He takes the tablet. He holds it near the flame. He does not blink when the heat licks his skin. He sees it, a line no one was supposed to see again. "Who held this last?" he asks. "A freedman," the clerk says. "Pedanius's former bookman. He came late. He said details had to be neat for the Senate's door." The prefect taps the wood with his knuckle. "Name." The clerk swallows. He gives it. The syllables fall like a small pot from a shelf, soft, then loud. The prefect knows the name. He remembers the mouth, thin, smooth, always wet with wine or worry. He remembers the man's eyes, fast and empty. He remembers the way the freedman stood in the corner on the day the Senate confirmed the old law, nodding at nothing, as if counting coins no one else could see. "Fetch him," the prefect says. By noon, the freedman sits in the same room as the tablet he tried to smooth. He laughs when he is afraid. He talks in circles. He says the word duty so often it becomes a trick in his mouth. The prefect listens until the word breaks. Then he places the tablet on the table between them. His finger touches the groove at the edge. "Say the name," the prefect says. The freedman's lips tremble. He looks at the groove as if it is a snake he stepped on yesterday and only now sees moving. His voice is small. "It was not a slave," he licks his lip. "A hired man, brought in to settle a debt. The master was cruel with money when he was kind with words." He twists a ring that shows he was once owned and now owns. "I helped the man in. I thought to frighten the master. It went wrong. I saw the throat. I ran. I smoothed the wax. I told myself the law would carry the blame away from me if it fell on many backs." He puts his face in his hands and makes the sound men make when they finally hear themselves. The prefect breathes out, long. In his head he sees the square. He sees the old soldier's folded cloak. He sees the boy's tag. He sees Dione at the rope, the lamp girl who kept her face straight like a line on a map. He moves without noise. He does not shout. He does not drag the freedman into the street. He calls two lictors. "Hold him," he says. "He will answer at the Capitol." The freedman looks up with hope clinging to his face like a weed. "You will put the truth on the tablets," he says. "You will set us right." The prefect looks at him as if the man is fog. "There is no us," he says. By evening, the Senate hears the new words. Men in white shift on their seats. The law they carried in the morning lies heavy in the room like iron wet with blood. This new line tries to make the iron light. Voices rise. Some say the state must be seen to correct itself. Some say to admit error will cut Rome at the knee. Some say nothing, because to speak would mean swallowing a stone that will not go down. The prefect does not speak long. He says the freedman's name. He says the word hired knife. He says witness. He says mark in wax. He does not say Dion. He does not say boy. He does not say old soldier. He keeps those names in his belt, folded and warm. When he stops, the room is quiet. Then an old senator stands, a man who smells of cedar and law. He says the ancient rule still holds because the household did not save its master. He says the error changes the cause, not the duty. He says Rome is kept strong by keeping old shapes even when they cut. Heads nod. The clerk in the back lowers his eyes to his hands so no one sees the water rise there. The freedman is sentenced not to a platform in the square, because Rome does not always choose to mirror what it has done, but to a death without a crowd, for making a river of words run the wrong way. His name will not be cried aloud. It will be a line drawn through a line in a book, neat and final. The prefect walks out into evening. The sky over the Tiber is the colour of wine left too long in a cup. He stands on a bridge and watches the current pull light apart. He does not feel clean. He feels exact, like a line on a map that cannot move without ripping the paper. He turns and goes to the mills. The state yard smells of flour and sweat and lamp oil. The guard with the tired kindness meets him at the gate and says nothing. He leads him up the stairs. The old soldier sees them and straightens as if pulled up by a rope inside him. Dione looks up from her tray. The boy stands near the cistern, collar tag bright as a small moon. The prefect tells them what the Senate chose. He keeps it short. He uses words that do not dress the truth in silk. The man who helped the killer in was not a slave, he says. It changes nothing the Senate will carry in the street, but it changes what I can carry in my office. He looks at Dione. You are state labor, and state labor is not freed. He does not make the word gentle, but Rome has doors, some still open to hands without rings. He has already used those hands. He spent the waning daylight in the halls where little trades are made, a seat promised, a vote counted, a nephew placed in a desk near a window, if this, if that. He bartered coppers and names and silences. He did not write any of it down. The waterworks need small hands and steady ones, he says to the boy. There is a place where the aqueduct spills into measuring tanks, where numbers must be marked and kept. If a boy can learn his letters fast, he can be useful there, under guard. State-owned, yes, but under open sky by day, with a roof by night that is not as loud as this. The boy's breath stops and starts. His hand goes to the tag at his throat, then drops. I will learn, he says, voice raw. Give me the marks. I will learn. To earn it, the prefect says, you must carry water 2 more months without falling, and the clerk at the tanks must swear you are quick. I have already placed the word, but words need a hook to hold. He nods to the old soldier. Teach him to keep his knees.
The old soldier nods back, face plain and strong. He will keep them, he says. I will lend him mine when he cannot find his. The prefect turns to Dione. He looks at her tray, the oil on her fingertips, the calm in the way she stands. There is a lamp room at the city's south gate, he says. Not state, guild. A place where the lamp makers' wives keep the fires for the watch. They will take a girl who can trim a wick without wasting oil and who can count stock by night. It is still a chain, he touches his belt, where the folded list sits, warm as a hidden coal. But it is a chain tied to a door, not to a wheel. Dione takes this in without blinking. She has learned that gifts from offices are like meat left out in summer, good, but must be eaten before it turns. If I go, she says softly, I will keep light where men walk. You will keep light where records sit too, the prefect says, a shade too quickly, and then stops himself from saying more. He is not a man who lays a full plan on a table. He is a man who moves one cup and waits to see if another slides with it. He gives the guard a small tablet with marks for transfer. He gives the old soldier nothing, only a look that is a full measure of respect and an empty measure of power. The old soldier answers with a brief smile that shows he knows the difference. Why are you doing this? The boy asks, child enough to put the clean question out loud. The prefect looks down at him and then at the lamp in Dione's hand. The flame is small and straight. Because the law is heavy, he says, and a man must choose what else to carry with it, or he learns he has carried only weight and not one good thing. He leaves before any thanks can make the air stranger than it already is. The mills take back their hum. The old soldier returns to the circle of bars. The boy shoulders his pole and counts the steps as if they are beads. Dione moves along the rail, pouring oil, trimming wick, thinking the letter shapes into her palm the way she breathes. Constant, simple, clear. 2 months pass like a wheel that refuses to stop. The boy's back finds the trick of turning without cracking. He learns the path where the floor is less slick. He learns which guard will let him step aside to catch breath and which will not. At second bell each day, he climbs to the flowered board with the old soldier blocking the stair, and Diona draws with him. The letters grow into numbers. The numbers grow into a small truth that can be written. 3 parts here, 2 parts there, flow measured, water counted. At the end of the second month, a man from the aqueduct office comes. He has a reed pen tucked behind his ear and hands stained the color of old parchment. He watches the boy carry, he watches him count, he asks him to draw the shape for 50, then for 100, then for half. The boy draws them. He does not shake. The clerk nods once, as if handing a cup of water to a man who is already drinking. The transfer is stamped, the collar stays, but the road changes. The boy walks under open sky to the measuring tanks, stone basins where the city's water is tamed. He learns to cut a wet notch with a knife and smear charcoal into it so the mark will hold. He learns to record the fall after rain and the rise after snowmelt in the far hills. He learns to listen to water and hear when it says something is wrong upstream. The men around him call him Little One at first in rough kindness and then not at all because he grows. Dione goes to the south gate lamp room. It smells of oil and wool and old wood. The women there do not ask her about the mills. They watch her hands for a day and then for another. On the third day, they stop watching. She keeps flame. She counts. She learns the city's hours not by bells, but by steps. The watchman's tramp, the market's waking, the slow tread of men who do not want to return home yet, and the quick steps of those who must. At night, when the room is still, she writes a letter in her mind for the boy, and then erases it and writes it in his palm the next day when he comes to the gate to bring a jar and a story. The old soldier remains at the mills. He is too old to be moved unless a man with many rings decides to make a show. He sets the beat. He keeps men together. He trades a crust for a crust. He leaves one kindness under a stone each day to be found by someone who needs to believe the ground can still give. One winter morning, the cough that had been dog-deep in his chest comes up like a wave and does not go down. He sits, he leans his head on a post he has knocked with his hand 1,000 times. He smiles, thin as a new moon. Left, he whispers to no one. Left. The men around him slow and then do not. Work washes over the place where he sat and leaves it clean. The guard with the tired kindness takes his cloak and folds it and sets it under the bench by the wall where those who need a cover will know to look. The prefect grows older in his post. He sends men to die and men to work and men to go home. He keeps the folded list in his belt until the day a new man with a harder mouth takes his office. On that day, he walks to the Tiber with the list in his hand. He reads the names one last time. He does not open the fingers that hold them. He puts the paper under a stone near the bridge where he first stood with the bad sky and the worst tablet. The water talks, he answers it quietly. Then he goes where men go when the city's door closes behind them and the farm road opens. Years pass the way years do. In coins, in coughs, in children's steps, in little festivals where men pretend the year is a circle and not a slide. The boy grows tall. The collar leaves a dark ring on his neck even after it is removed by a city clerk who says the state has had enough of his shoulders and now would like to have his pen. The clerk gives him a cap to show he is free. The cap feels wrong on his head the first day. The second day, he forgets to feel it. The third day, he remembers and laughs alone at the aqueduct wall and writes the letter A with the tip of his knife in the lime. Small, where no one will see. He learns to keep the tanks in flood and in drought. He learns to write little tablets that move things that should have been moved without a tablet, grain to a short street, oil to a dark room, help to a place where 2 arches met and a crack grew. He learns, too, to read bad tablets and carry them under his tongue until he can spit them into a room where a better tablet is waiting. He visits Dione at the south gate. They sit with bread between them and eat it without hurry. The lamp room is warm even in winter. She shows him how to trim a wick to a thin tongue so the flame will not smoke. He shows her how to hold a reed pen so the ink runs clean. He writes her name, not the house name, the real one from the other side of water and years. the one that cried out from the crowd on the day by the platform. He writes it small on a scrap, and she burns it after, not to lose it, but to make it a part of the air they both breathe. Sometimes, in the blue hour before dawn, he walks up to the mills with a jug and a lie about measuring water. He leaves the jug and sits and listens to the hum and thinks of a man whose voice set a beat and of hands that pushed and learned to turn pain into rhythm. He takes the old soldier's folded cloak from under the bench and shakes it and mends a seam and puts it back. He does not tell anyone he does this. And sometimes the prefect, no longer a prefect, only a man with a field that keeps him honest, comes to the city on business and stands at the south gate. He watches the lamp room door. He does not go in. He cannot. He chose a part and must let it stand. But when he sees a woman come out with oil on her fingers and a straight chin, he allows himself one breath that is not duty. One spring, rain comes long and hard. The river rises, the stone tanks at the aqueduct intake tremble, the clay marks wash thin. The boy, now a man with scarred palms and a quiet voice, climbs the wall in storm and cuts new marks higher than the old ones, then higher still. He knows the numbers. He knows where to stand. He knows what to tell the men at the gates. Close this, open that, let the lower streets drown a little to save the bread store the city holds. After the waterfalls, the men who count money thank the men who counted water as if they had needed them only now. The man who once was a boy goes to the south gate with a jar and sits with Dion and tells her how the flood sang like 1,000 voices and how the marks in the stone held because the hand that cut them did not shake. She listens and smiles and says he ought to repair his knife edge. He holds up the blade and says, "Letters have eaten it." That night, in the quiet hour when the lamp room breathes, Diana opens a small box. Inside is a thin plate of bronze, the kind a craftsman wears around his neck to say what shop he belongs to. On it, cut neat, are 2 words: lamp, keeper. She runs her thumb over the grooves. She thinks of iron tags that called bodies property. She thinks of names burned into wax and into air. She thinks of the way a city can be held by hands, not blood alone. If the law asks you what really happens to slaves who defy their Roman masters, she says aloud, though no one is in the room, tell it this: we were punished, we were ground, we were made into warnings. She sets the plate down. But we kept small fires alive in places where the law could not see. She touches the lamp and the flame answers. We taught letters and flour. We counted water so the city would not starve. We carried one another in narrow ways that did not make a show. We left marks a storm could not wash. She lifts the bronze plate to the lamp and watches the light run through the cuts. Outside, the street dogs bark at nothing and everything. A cartwheel squeals. Somewhere a baby starts and is comforted. Somewhere else, a freedman's name is scratched out of a book and no one remembers to say it. In the mills, a new voice takes the old soldier's beat. It is not as strong. It is enough. On the bridge, the stone under which the prefect tucked his folded list is darker than the rest, where wet fingers touch it in summer. In the record house, the junior clerk learns to make a copy of a tablet before he smooths it, and he keeps the copy in a drawer that sticks. And he tells a friend that drawers must stick if they are to be of any use. Years later, when both the boy with the tag and the lamp girl with straight chin are old enough to feel rain in their bones before it falls, a child comes to the measuring tanks. Small, fierce, curious. He asks why the wall is scored with little black cuts where the water level sits. The man with the quiet voice and the scarred hands shows him how to count the notches. He takes the child's finger and traces A on the inside of a warm palm. "What does it mean?" the child asks. "It means beginning," the man says. "It means a door." The child nods as if he understands. Maybe he does. Children often understand doors before they recognize walls. That night, at the south gate, the same child presses his palm to the lamplight and shows the woman with oil on her fingers. She laughs softly. She draws an H on the back of his hand to match. He grins and runs into the dark and the light at once because he has learned they live together. This is what Rome cannot write on its tablets, the small ways people keep the inside part of themselves alive when the outside part is owned. This is what the law cannot measure, the path of quiet defiance that does not break a city, but teaches it slowly to feel shame and then to listen. Rome will take a long time to learn. Stone learns slowly. But even stone remembers thumbprints left in clay before it hardened. If you ask what really happened to the slaves who defied their Roman masters, the clean answer is this: they were whipped, chained, branded, sent to the mills or mines, crucified when the state wanted a public lesson. The cleaner answer is a lie, because it leaves out the rest. The rest is this: their bodies paid the price, and their stubborn, taut, shared courage wrote a quiet story under the loud one. Lamps were kept, water was counted, names were whispered into hands, a list was folded and hidden. A beat was set, a door was shown. And because such things were done by people who were not supposed to matter, the city, that believed it could not change, began, very slowly, to feel where the stone was thin. The mills hum, the lamps burn, the river keeps its own count, and somewhere a hand still draws the first letter into a warm palm and teaches it to walk.